So, when we go into seasons of people being kind of in those tight positions, like if you've done, 30 agreements for sale, the majority of those people don't have the equity in their homes to be able to pay a realtor, or maybe they have a really tight timeline. Would you say that a lot of those people were in a position of needing your help to get out of those homes?
That's probably a fair assessment that a lot of times the conventional way of selling a house wouldn't have worked for them. That avenue just wasn't available. I mean, we occasionally get people. I have a fellow, we've been in a deal with him for a year, and he had over $100,000 of equity. He just didn't want to go down the realtor road for whatever reason. And he just liked that we were 2 years that we had talked to the gentleman. But quite often, if you think about the number of people today, say if you bought in the last 3 years and maybe even 5, first-time home buyers, they put 5% down. So if they bought a $400,000 property, they put their 20 down, they had a 380 plus CMHC put them to the 390s. The property value maybe declined in the last 3 years by 5-ish%, which now means it's worth 380 at best. And with their payout penalties and realtor commissions, a lot of people are getting told, well, you have to put $10, $12, $15,000 into our trust account if you want to sell this property, and they don't have those funds. Yeah. So they've become, unfortunately, victims of underwater. That whole real estate should be a minimum of a 5-year horizon if you're buying for self, quite frankly, but things change. So yeah, absolutely. We become an option that isn't available to them on the regular market.
So let me ask you, so let's say that they, they're told that, they don't have the equity to sell with a realtor or even pay lawyers' fees sometimes. So what is their option in general? I mean, I know everything's different, but what options do they have if they don't talk to someone like you that will, buy on creative terms and actually create something for them? What options do they have?
Well, traditionally, like we said, they got to put money down, which they may not have to cover the shortfall. They got to just keep riding it out and hope that the mortgage goes down more quickly, if that's a word, than the market. They have to just rent it and carry on. We see the forced landlords who really didn't want to be a landlord, couldn't sell their property, even in a decent market. Beyond that, handing the keys back, which again, there's definitely that pride aspect of protecting credit and what the home represents. You read that in study after study where, people, if something changed in their world and they ran up their credit cards and they maxed out their lines of credit and they even, et cetera, and then finally said, oh my gosh, my home, right? They did everything to protect their mortgage payments at the expense of darn near everything else. And sometimes we get calls from people before that's happened because they see it coming. Sometimes we get calls from people when you hope it's not too late, right?
And that's, I think, that's who I've spoken to. So we didn't do a whole ton of motivated seller stuff in our buying, just because we ended up with really good lines with realtors that had like creative stuff kind of that they could hand to us. But those, when I did kind of foray into that, what we heard a lot, and I still get the occasional call from people who, friends of friends of friends or whatever, lots of times it's people that if it weren't for an investor that's gonna, rent out their place or do something creatively for them, an agreement for sale or a vendor take back, some sort of creative real estate, they basically have the choice of walking away, losing their home, losing their credit, and having this tough situation that they're in follow them for the next 7 years without being able to buy another home. And, it's a long time, a long road ahead of them if someone like us doesn't come along and offer them a fair solution. And that's where I'm like, yay, here we are. We're coming into, unprecedented unemployment across, like you said, the country. It's not regional right now. It's across the country. We've got, lowest gas prices in history. We've got, an unprecedented virus that's created all kinds of outward kind of things. We are coming into what I think is an unprecedented time where people are going to need help without this being something that follows them for 7 to 10 years. So that's why we're excited to have you here today, because I'm going to repeat some of the credentials just because for those that have missed it, we've had some glitches going on here. So, but you've had 30 agreements for sale deals. You've got 32 families in your rent to own program currently. sorry, not currently, in total, that you've helped 32 families get
Yeah,
into
they qualified to buy the house.
it's amazing. Like that's you've put them in a home as a rent to own, and they've gone through the couple year process of repairing credit, whatever it might be, and they've been able to buy the home as was intended.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's such a good feeling, because again, home ownership is so ingrained in the Canadian psyche that to help people achieve that dream is a side benefit, and that stuff, I enjoy that too.
Yeah, the social aspect of it is absolutely there, 100%. You have 19 contracts, rent-to-own contracts in place now. So that's 19 more families that will have been able to get into home ownership, or had the opportunity to anyways, because of what you have to offer.
Correct. We don't have a 100% success rate. We do say that, right? Not everyone makes it, but we do also tell people who come to us before they sign that, said, we will rarely be the cause of what we call a disconnect. So as long as they're doing what they need to do to get down the road towards qualifying, we're happy to sign an extension with people. I mean, we have some people who were supposed to be 2-3 year plans, and we're on year 7, 8.
Oh, wow.
But again, it works, and we'd rather have their testimonial and the success than the house back, quite frankly. Because you get a house back, you're going to spend money reconditioning it.
Yeah, right. And that's awesome, because one thing, it's bad, but years ago when I first started looking into rent to own, I was looking at learning off of a gentleman that was doing it, and his pitch to me was, oh yeah, only 1 in 20 families will actually be able to buy in Alberta at the time, will actually be able to buy. So it's perfect. You get a down payment from them up front. You get extra rent from them for 3 to 5 years. And at the end of it, they can't buy. They're out, and you turn around and you do it all again. And I was like, that does not appeal to me at all. That's terrible. That's a shark. But that's not how it has to be done, right?
No, we call that lather, rinse, and repeat, and rent to fail. And quite frankly, they exist, the companies exist, and everyone has their own parameters on how they establish a business. It certainly wasn't our intent, for sure. We have a saying that says, I don't want to be, running through Sobeys and going, crap, there's Tiffany, I got to go the other way with my grocery cart. Did she see me? Right. So totally. There are some very good trainers who we met over the years who talked to us about that win-win aspect, that, yeah, rent to own carries a bad name. We know that. People ask us about it. So as long as you can be aware of what the pitfalls are, we tell them what the pitfalls are, and we tell them how we mitigate them. And there is risk. But today, if you put up a $25,000 down payment with a home builder and you want to build a new house, and they phone you in 9 months and say, hey, you're 60 days away from possession, and you go, right? There are, in every business transaction, there's a deposit and there's a consequence, right? Yeah,
absolutely. There's a risk in everything. But I do love that, and like you're part of Barry and Donna's focus team, so Barry McGuire's rapid cash program, and of course that's what brings us together today, is the fact that we stand strong on ethics and how they do business, and so do you, obviously, and that you're actually there to, you're an investor, you're running a business, you need to be making yourself money and your joint venture partners money. But at the end of the day, there is a way to make that so that everyone is winning all around.
Yeah, you have to make money, but you can do it without, like you said, doing it unethically.
Yeah.
So, and Barry and Donna teach it the right way, for sure.
They do. It's awesome. So June 27th, you're going to be helping us out at the all-day workshop that we're doing for, it's going to focus mostly on agreements for sale and rent to own, which, I mean, you've got more than enough experience in those two strategies. So we'll look forward to your guidance there, and with Barry's mentorship and walking us through the day. It's going to be an awesome day. So tell me about your hard money lenders. So these are private investors. Have you gone out and found them yourself, or do you work through a broker?
Quite frankly, most of that credit goes to my wife, Linda. She, for years, I was working 60, 70 hours a week. So we'd buy a house and I'd go, here you go, and handle it A to Z. And she was the doer bunny. But she also, by virtue of, she was in the teaching profession. And if you think about, if you're, I'm going to get in trouble here, stereotyping, but let's just say that there's a larger percentage of teachers on average in general that have stability, conservative with money, have been in the position, have lived in Alberta and been in their positions before property values doubled here in the early 2000s, aka have a fairly good amount of equity and that sort of thing. So it started with a conversation on her part, and it just kind of grew from there. So we have been able to source the majority of funds from friends and colleagues. It was, interestingly enough, there was a webinar about I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that has led to a conversation, because there's always opportunities and people, again, here's a name from the past too. Greg Habstritt was the guy who said it, you know, a marketing thing. If you're tired of the gut-wrenching roller coaster that the stock market is, well, that's more than now back in vogue. It never really went out of vogue. And we like to say, well, we mailed every single one of our investors their checks on March 31st, right around the time everything was tanking around there. And yeah, there's a little bit of growth back, but that uncertainty. So people have and are looking for a place where they can put their funds. And again, when you have, we've been lucky enough to have been in the right place at the right time, met some people, took some training, listened to it, we're open to it. I mean, I learn something every time at a Barry and Donna event. I pick up nuggets all the time. It keeps me coming back for sure. So that is win-win. But there's always opportunities. And so, yeah, we have discussions, and if we can expand, everyone agrees, I think, again, further to your first question, that there will be opportunities in the market in the next, and you pick the timeline, 30, 60, 90 days, a year from now, there will probably be some opportunities that didn't exist today because of the pandemic. So private money is definitely a way to get it done.
It does. And I love what you said about how, you know, it happens just almost organically, where there's just people that have money, but they don't have anywhere to put it that's safe, secure. And if they know you, like you, and trust you, they're going to be like, okay, well, I feel like I can trust you with it. And plus it's like tangible. It's real estate. I kind of feel good about that. And so it is an organic thing a lot of times, where people just start learning. And with what we're experiencing right now, you know, people have lost 30% of their portfolios in the last few months. People's RSPs are, you know, at 2/3 of what it was. That's crazy, right? Like, they need somewhere to put it, but we have to be ready. And I think that's like become my new, like, I don't know, I pretty much stalked Barry and Donna because they had another commitment on the 27th, and we had a commitment on the 20th, and we couldn't change ours. And I was like, but you guys, people need this right now. We need to be doing this. And they were like, well, maybe July. And I'm like, we need this right now, because we have to prep as investors like ourselves, our knowledge and our confidence about these strategies, so that when these opportunities do start coming in the next, like I see in the fall, especially, for what I think from what I've experienced, that, you know, CERB is ending next month, and it's going to take a little bit of time, and credit cards will take some time to get wrecked, but there's going to be people that need help. And if we don't help them, there are sharks that will. So I feel like it's almost like a social responsibility. Like, get out there and start talking to people and give them a good place to put things, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to, and they could end up in the wrong hands.
Yeah, we've been known to stretch for a deal in the past, stretch more than maybe we would have, should have, but there's always an underlying story, and numbers are important, but so is the story that goes with it. So yeah, I hear you.
I love it. And I love the fact that, like, if you bought a property on agreement for sale, let's say, can you give us a quick rundown of what that really means from an investment point of view?
Sure. The quickest way that I think I've been able to explain it is a property that has an existing mortgage already in place. The agreement for sale is, and my lawyer actually coined it, like an effective, keyword note on the emphasis on the word effective, assumption of their existing mortgage. So you take over the entire terms of the existing finance that are on the property. So that's the principal, the interest rate, the payments, all of that stuff. They shift from being the seller's responsibility to yours. So if you've ever assumed someone's lease on a vehicle, it's very similar. You take over all the terms, you become responsible for it. But tied in with that in some cases is how do you deal with the equity, if they have any. Obviously, if they don't, that's fairly simple. And the other parts of how do you make sure that they are protected as sellers, because certainly the number one risk for a seller in going into one of these deals is if I, as the buyer, don't make their payments. And again, so for people who are going, well, how do I show people on that, how to do that in the first one? I can remember when we first started down this road, having to say to people, well, yeah, we just took this seminar, which is not what we said, right? You would say to them, listen, we have a system, because at that point we were already established landlords, so we understand how to look after the property and the asset. I said, as far as how do you ascertain that I'm going to make your payments, I offered at the time to show them our credit bureau, because we had some existing mortgages, obviously. And I actually had a seller who took us up, and I said, yep, I'd like to see that. And so we pulled it, we showed it to them. And it, in that case, it put together a deal. So, I mean, now that we have some momentum, it's very easy to say, well, come down to the office, you can pick a file at random, and I may have to, put my finger over the privacy part of who they are, but every single file we can show you, it represents a deal that goes on. But when you're first starting out, it's establishing that credibility, that trust with people. And, again, it's been taught over the number of years, you can leverage back to your group. You can leverage back to Barry and Donna's group that says, listen, we're investors, we're getting this, we have a few rental properties, but standing behind us, Corey and Tiffany, if I don't know the answer, and there's still stuff today we don't know the answers to, right? Yeah. But I bet you I can find you the answer in about 3 phone calls maximum, because of the network that exists. And it's just about establishing and letting people understand that you're there to look after them. There's a legal document that's going to explain it. I'm way off topic, but
no, that's okay. No, yeah. This is investor talk.
The concept of it is, on the day you take possession, you become responsible for everything: taxes, insurance, repairs, vacancy, tenancy, and most importantly, the mortgage payments. And then you cash that mortgage out at a later date. It's a version of owner financing. So owner financing, people understand that if you had that same, say, $400,000 property that was free and clear, and the owner says to you, give me $10, $20, $30, $50,000 down, and I will carry you on the rest. Well, in this case, what they're carrying you on is underlined by the bank's mortgage. The bank's mortgage is a portion of what they're carrying on it. So you're essentially taking over those terms.
Why is that? How does that work with the lender? Why is the lender, okay with that, or have no choice in that?
Well, one of the big things that's going to come up in the training is that lenders have in mortgages a due on sale clause. And so they can call the mortgage if they deem it to be a sale. In all the time that we have been doing these deals, we literally have had this many that have been called by lenders. And I think what happens, quite frankly, is if they're getting paid, the mortgage continues on. The payments keep coming. But that said, I know that from having attended enough of the Barry and Donna and seen the content, it will be a conversation that says, you better have a plan B and a contingency if it gets called.
And we were the same when we were doing a lot of assumptions back in the day. And, ATB, for example, had a clause that, you can assume this, but at any point we may decide to pull this mortgage on you. But, at the end of the day, when we talked to them and went through the process and stuff, they were like, okay, so you've been paying the mortgage for the last 4 years, not these people? We're like, yeah, it's come out of our account. All right, well, we're kind of happy with the fact that someone's paying the bills. So, it wasn't a big issue, but at the same time, like you said, it certainly can be. But so there's a framework and a system for working through and around that's perfectly legal, perfectly ethical. Now, what happens on the sale? So let's say you agree to buy this house from them, like in, June of 2020, you say, yeah, okay, I will take over all payments, like you said, taxes, everything, as of June 30th, 2020. Now, what does the framework look like for, getting out of that deal? How long does your agreement last for?
The duration of the deal is quite frankly a term that is a point of discussion / negotiation. At a minimum, in a perfect world, you want the day that you cash it out to coincide with the maturity date because there's no payout penalties. But it doesn't always work depending again what your exit is. Some people will do AFS and just roll them into their buy and hold portfolio. They may not ever, right? They may just keep them forever and use takeout financing with their own bank at some point in time. Again, if you think about a house that's a 5% down house, well, as an investor, for you to take it over, you need to come up with a fairly good chunk of down payment. But if you take it over high and the mortgage paid on comes down, at some point in time, you can refinance that and take it over with yourselves. So you want to have, the more time, the better is the easiest way to put it. We've heard of deals where people said, don't care, never going to own another house again. If you take 20 years, you can have it. And most of that stuff gets put into the contracts. We will usually look at if they, for us, I don't know, there's no formula, but say the mortgage is maturing in the next year or two, we really, really want to understand that there's an ability to have an opportunity to renew that mortgage. So touching on renewals are possible. In some cases, a lot of the bricks and mortar type big banks will let you deal with them directly. We do that with a power of attorney document. The 1-800 banks, sometimes you have to involve the sellers themselves directly because they don't recognize POAs, and every bank just seems to have their own set of rules, sort of thing.
Gotcha. So you have to keep in touch with the sellers as well, even if it's a long-term kind of thing. You got to know where they've headed to and be in touch with them. And so now let's say you've done this agreement for sale. So let's say you've gotten money on the buy, you've gotten in for whatever, maybe low cash down or whatever terms it is that were a win for you and maybe your joint venture partners. Now, going into a rent to own, can you take that same house? So I guess I'm framing this question because lots of times, you look at a house and you go, well, it doesn't really cash flow and the numbers don't really work. And so it's a great deal. It's little money down, but it doesn't cash flow. So can you then take that house and turn it into a rent to own and kind of fill in some of that gap?
The quick answer is yes. It pretty much has to be that way. And one of the reasons that it really appealed to us was that when we looked at, again, in Airdrie, we're 70,000-ish people, and this is where we focus our investing. And really, it limited you as a buy and hold person when you did your numbers to a very, very narrow segment of housing that made sense in properties as an investor. So that $400,000 single family house just doesn't generate enough cash flow to buy it as a conventional buy and hold. So the part that why AFS and rent to own kind of work hand in hand is that on that house, the tenant will pay rent, but they will then also pay you an option credit, which then takes that negative cash flow property and moves it into a minimum cash flow neutral. In a perfect world, obviously cash flow positive type property. And really you're taking your profit in chunks today is what the option credits represent. That becomes, it's the tenant's money, and it forms part of their down payment when they qualify. So absolutely, it allowed us to buy properties that we would never have looked at in the past.
Right? Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of it is AFS on its own can be great, but your options can be limited depending on the market you're in, unless you combine it with another strategy. And I'm just going to kind of touch on this. So you've got joint venture partners that have, you've done some of these with. You've got hard money lenders that you've used some of the money to do on some of these RTO deals, AFS deals, agreements for sale. Now you've gone and turned it into also a rent to own. So there's third strategy here. So all of these strategies, as much as they're separate strategies, they can be really complementary and really make it so that properties that wouldn't have worked before actually do work now.
That's right. Stuff that we wouldn't have considered 12 years ago, we look at daily right now. And you think about it, a joint venture deal doesn't necessarily have to be a buy and hold joint venture deal. It could be something, in our case, we only have one joint venture with 2 properties in it that is buy and hold. The rest of them are all part of our so-called quick turn rapid cash stuff. And that again is a morphing of a strategy. You buy a property, reno it, put it into your joint venture investor's name, refinance it, exit the property via rent to own. So really in those deals, you're manufacturing your own kind of AFS, quite frankly.
Well, and you've got like a bit of a burr in there as well then. So, I
Yes.
mean, right, you're just kind of transacting. And I think that's the beauty of what I love about Donna and Barry stuff is that when you go to these workshops, so we haven't been to one since 2014, but you know, when you go, you get all these, it's transaction engineering. It's like, well, I've got this. This is my situation. What can I do? And right now we're selling a property of my dad's. And I am having so much fun with it. We haven't sold a property in a while. And I'm just like, well, look, if we RTO'd it, or if we did this, or if we added a VTB, or if we, like, it's like, oh, I miss this stuff. You know, I want to like get back in there because it's pretty fun to get creative, but you have to know the basics. You have to have a good, you know, foundation of it. And so having you letting us pick your brain is just awesome. So thank you for that. I want to talk to you about one thing that I'm really passionate about, and that's, you know, our company name, the newest company name anyway, the one that we started 3 years ago, is called Investor Life. And the reason we call it that is because we do believe that so many people, we saw so many investors come and go over the years, and you know, they worked because it's a hustle. We got to work. The game was hard on them, and it took them out of the game before they were able to reach that true reason why they initially came in, whether that's, you know, travel or spending time with family, or they ended up going back to work or getting out of the game. But you guys, you and Linda, tell me a little bit about your investor life, because I love watching you guys. I really feel like you're a great example of a good balance, and to me that's what's about. So tell me about your guys' life.
We're pretty fortunate, I would say. I was one of those people who said, I'm going to work till I'm 75, right? And because I enjoyed what I was doing, I loved working in the car business for years. Again, there's an element of that deal making that's very, you know, it translates well into houses. Houses are like cars with just more zeros, maybe. But by the same token, my father died young. So I have that recognition that tomorrow is not necessarily always there for everyone. So the ability right now, we're fortunate enough, we get to spend time away. In the winter, we usually take a minimum of 8 to 10 weeks away, and we're down in Oaxaca in the south of Mexico. You can run the business remotely because over the years, we've been able to establish some relationships. And again, that whole, how do you avoid burnout when you're, you know, a landlord that gets to 10, 15, and 20 tenants, stores, properties, and you're doing it all on your own, and you're going, oh my God. And eventually one of two things happens. Like you said, you quit, you hire a property management company, or you hire, because in our case, we were too OCD maybe to farm out the property management. So we took on what started out as a part-time assistant position for us. Again, that scale that happens, we now have full-time employees, but you get to train them. They understand what your values are, and they're aligned with them. And that's what's really important to us, to the point where I've had a lot, anyone who follows me on Facebook knows that I've had a lot going on in my world in the last couple of years. And the team has carried us like you wouldn't believe, and we're just so grateful for that.
It's amazing to see that you're actually living the life, not only just like, let's say you're going to Mexico for a few, you know, months or whatever every year, and that's fantastic, but also when things happen in your life and your family, you're able to actually truly be there when you're needed. And that's, you know, what I mean, I've creeped and seen from the outside looking in, and it's beautiful. It really is. But to me, that's what the investor life is all about. So, you know, thanks for being a good example of that, because it is hard to find. Lots of times we get like those workers that are like, you know, all about the grind, which is great. Or people that are like, this is too much for me and I need out. But it's because they're not taking that balance and that time to make sure that their time and lifestyle is preserved. But you've always been a great example of that. So, and I know, speaking of that, you snuck us in here today because your wife is on her way home and you're looking forward to a nice evening together. So, you know, we had some glitches and stuff, and I would love to talk to you more, but I think that I should be respectful of your time and let you run. And, you know, maybe we can do this again sometime. But really, really appreciate your insights on agreements for sale and rent to own and joint ventures and hard money lenders, and how all of those things can work together. And the best part about it for me is that you showed us that there's a way to do this without being a shark, and by, you know, giving 32 families, you know, have qualified to buy the house that they were renting from you. Like, that's beautiful. And so, yeah, I aspire. I've never done rent to own. I'm going to do one because I want to experience it. But I aspire to make sure that there's that social aspect to it. So thank you for that too.
My pleasure. You betcha. Anytime. And one of the benefits, I think, of that course on the 27th is there's content being taught. And again, from some of the webinars that I've seen that have happened, I'm sure Barry and Donna will figure out how to do this as well. The facilitation of networking that happens on a virtual event to meet people and you know, how can I help? It just seems to be we were so fortunate to have fallen into the right circles very early in our, even prior to joining any real estate type groups. We just were given some good guidance, and someone very early said, how can we help? And that's what moves everyone forward, because the chances that everyone's going to compete for the same tenant, that happens, or a property, it happens, but it's pretty rare. There's so many opportunities out there that collectively everyone gets better, and that's what I like about this community.
Yeah, absolutely. We grow together, we grow up together, right? Those I've found, you know, through the years, those that were the few that were kind of like, you know, kind of like scarcity minded, they're not around anymore. Like they don't last in the game, because we need each other if we're actually going to make this happen. So
yeah, it's something we haven't even touched on that. But one of the things that we did very quickly coming out of some of that training on these non-traditional ways of buying and rent to own and stuff like that is we got involved into a mastermind group quite early out of the chute. And it happened to be, again, in the world of luck, it was a random meeting at an event that led to a group that happened to be filled with a bunch of really, really motivated people. And that group mindset, you know, we've had lots of just different elements that just happen to all come together at the right point. And without that group too, I suspect Linda might still be teaching it. I might still be working, right?
But, well, I don't know. I don't think it's luck. I think that it's you exude a certain thing and you attract a certain thing, and you don't bother with those and they don't bother with you when you know that you're not aligned. So you kind of end up in those groups. So yeah, it's been awesome talking to you. So thank you so much.